Hello, this is David Mandel, one of the founders and principals of OJM Group, and I appreciate you taking a couple of minutes out of your day to attend today's webinar. The topic today is about retirement planning, and specifically about retirement planning and tax diversification. Subtitle, using qualified plans, non-qualified plans, and other assets for a tax-efficient retirement. I think one of the most important things we do at OJM Group is help clients navigate their financial life towards a goal of retirement, which can be over a very long period, but it's helping people get from point A to point B. And since we're in college basketball season as I record this in late March, I will quote John Wooden, where I went to graduate school, law school, and business school at UCLA. One of the greatest college basketball coaches of all time, said a failure to plan is a plan to fail. And I think what we want to talk about today is using retirement type plans and retirement assets to get you there, but to keep tax diversification in mind, because you hear a lot about diversification from an investment point of view, and certainly our investment, our wealth management division spent a lot of time on working on that for our clients. But tax diversification is something that I think is not spoken about much in the financial world, and it's a shame because the tax drag and the tax impact on clients' retirement can be significant if not planned for. So let us go through these slides. We'll spend about 20 minutes today going through what we're doing. So a couple of disclaimer slides. Obviously, our firm is an investment firm registered with the SEC. We have insurance license, etc. My background is as a lawyer. We have a number of lawyers in the firm, but we're not a law firm. We've got some CPAs in the firm, but we're not a CPA firm. And this presentation, like any presentation, should not be substituted for advice based on your circumstances. This is general, and the specific recommendations that we might make for you might vary from this talk significantly based on your facts and circumstances. That is why individual planning is so important. As always, we want to provide education to our clients and potential clients, and we've been doing that for almost 20 years. We've been writing books since 1997, and we have lots of different books for physicians, for business owners coming out. We've got some that you don't even see here for planning for professional athletes. We've got a book out there that's for interior design firms. We're constantly coming out with new material, but this gives you, a little bit of a picture. And certainly for our physician clients, for Doctors Only, is kind of the flagship national book. If you don't have that, you should get it. We give it to you for free, hard copy, Kindle, iPad. Or for our business owners and entrepreneurs, Fortune Building is our flagship book, and that's again available in hard copy, Kindle, iPad. So please take advantage of those free materials. So let's talk about what is retirement plan. When a client says I have a retirement plan, they may either mean a qualified retirement plan in their business or practice, or they may mean a sort of a financial model, a plan to use all of their assets and future income sources to get to a retirement. And you could use both of those terms. We like to think of qualified retirement plans as one bucket in an overall multi-bucket retirement plan, where retirement is really about building that financial model, building that model, that plan from point A to point B, having that plan, and qualified retirement plans are one tool within that, one bucket within that, if you're going to use that analogy. And unfortunately, too many clients, very successful ones, really are relying primarily, or in some cases even exclusively, on their qualified retirement plan to be their retirement plan. And that's a real mistake when we get to the concept of tax diversification. Because while qualified retirement plans are terrific tools for tax benefits today, they're terrible tools for the tax treatment in the future. And you really need to hedge a qualified retirement plan with other types of buckets to put you in a position that you're in control. We don't know where tax rates are going to go. That you're going to hear that many times today. But what we want to do is put our clients in a position of strength so that regardless of which rates go up and down, they've got asset classes they can access to take advantage of the downs and avoid the ups in taxes on the certain types of assets. That's what tax diversification is all about. Let's look at this visually. Again, the three types of assets, or the three buckets of assets most clients have for their retirement are threefold. Assets in qualified plans. This is 401ks, 403bs, pension plans, profit-sharing plans, etc., even traditional IRAs. While these have tremendous tax benefits going in, including SEP IRAs, they are taxed at ordinary income on the way out. So if we use just today's rates, 39.6 is the highest federal rate, 6.6 is a medium state income tax rate. California, almost over double that, 13%. Florida, where I live, 0, but 6.6 is probably in the middle. 3.8% ACA tax for high-income taxpayers. So for high-income taxpayers in retirement, these assets in the green bucket are going to be taxed at about, under today's rates, 50%. They could go higher, as we'll look at the chart from the 20th century. But let's just assume that today, that $1 million in your IRA, that $1 million in your qualified retirement plan is really worth probably $500,000 for you in retirement. Okay, doesn't mean it's a bad asset to have. We'll talk about the pros and cons. We have to realize that's the facts. Then most clients, like I do, have a lot of assets outside qualified retirement plans that eventually they will liquidate and turn into retirement cash flow. Those are real estate, stocks, bonds, all types of securities, funds, interested in closely held businesses, investment artwork, or even jewelry. All these types of tangible assets that one might own in one's own name or in an LLC or in a trust, etc., when you turn them into cash, are going to be subject to capital gains taxes. Some of them, if you're holding them, specifically stocks, for dividends in retirement, as many clients do, that's going to be subject to dividend rates. Well, today, long-term capital gains and dividend rates on the federal level are the same. Okay, for high-income taxpayers, they're 20%. They move from 15 to 20 in the fiscal clip. But they're also subject to state income taxes. Most states don't distinguish between capital gains, dividend, and ordinary income. It's just income. So we have to apply the state tax, and then for higher income taxpayers, you're going to pay the ACA tax. So for many of us on the phone, we're looking at about 30% under today's rules tax loss on all of these types of assets. So that $1 million piece of real estate that you think you're going to sell and turn into retirement cash flow, we got to take taxes out of it. It's probably losing about a third of its assets. Okay. Then we've got the third bucket, which is the most, I think, overlooked assets when we typically look at a client, and they typically present to us. They've got green bucket, they've got a fair amount in the, looks like orange bucket, and then very few assets in the blue bucket, typically under 10%, certainly for most clients under 20% of their net worth, in the types of assets that will spin off no tax on the way out. Municipal bonds, well, obviously, those types of bonds are tax beneficial, but they also have some pretty limited in their returns. So that is understandable that they're not a huge part of clients' portfolios. Roth IRAs should be taken advantage of more than they are. Again, Roths, you go in after tax, they grow tax-free, you pull it out as tax-free. Certain fringe benefit plans we'll talk about, and non-qualified plans also grow tax-free and come out tax-free for the participants. Life insurance as a retirement plan. This is cash value life insurance, what a lot of people think of as whole life insurance, but whole life insurance is only one subset of cash value insurance, and in fact, in some ways, it's the least valuable or the least productive subsets. Doesn't mean it doesn't make sense for all clients. In fact, it does. But it's only one piece of permanent life insurance, which has other asset classes which can have more upside. And these come out tax-free in retirement. Does it mean that every client should have most of their assets in the blue bucket? Absolutely not. At our firm, we manage hundreds of millions of dollars for clients in the first two buckets. But we also recognize that the third bucket is important as well. So now let's talk about that first bucket, that qualified retirement plan, what you're putting money in to get that deduction today. What are the ground rules? Well, there's two different categories. Defined contribution, where the IRS defines how much you can put in, and then whatever it grows to, it grows to. And then defined benefit, which we look at an actuarial calculation based on your age and income and work backwards from when you retire to figure out how much you can put in today. Not subject for today's talk, but asset protection of qualified retirement plans, if properly structured, can be at the highest +5 level under federal law in most states. So that's a beneficial thing, obviously. You have to cover all eligible employees. Now, we're not here to say you should be cheap with your employees because the cost of turnover is high and the value of having good employees is important. But it is a cost, and I have many clients that have come to us in the past whose businesses have closed their qualified retirement plan or never set one up because they looked at the financials and it just didn't make sense. It cost so much for the employees relative to the owners that it just didn't make sense, especially when you consider the next cost, which is the tax cost. You get a full deduction going in, dollar for dollar, which is tremendous, and that's the siren song. That's the attraction why people use their qualified plans. But there's also income taxation on the way out. Now, there's tax-free growth in between, which is very valuable. But we have to look at this tool in its entirety, in its life cycle, to understand its pros and cons. The other thing about qualified retirement plans that is a negative is you want money out before you're 59 and a half, you're going to pay a penalty in addition to the ordinary income tax. And if you leave funds in the plan and you have an estate tax due, funds in qualified retirement plans are characterized as what is called income with respect to decedent, IRD, and these can be taxed at up to 70% when you pass away if it's subject to income and estate taxes. Now, underneath the qualified retirement plan umbrella, again, there's two types. Defined contribution plans. Here the IRS defines the contribution amount. 401ks, 403bs, 457 plans. In 2015, we have an $18,000 employee deferral amount. Profit sharing plans. In 2015, we have a defined contribution maximum of $53,000. One of the big benefits of defined contribution plans is the flexibility. You can decide to put in the maximum $53,000. Your partner could decide to put in $5,300. You could put in $53,000 this year, and then the next year your business isn't as successful. Revenues are down, profits are down. You don't have to put anything in the defined contribution plan, or you could put something in between 0 and the maximum. So real flexibility there. You can't have penalties for underfunding or termination, which you can for defined benefit plan, which we'll talk about. But the key for both plans, you'll see this on both slides, proper plan design. There's hundreds of different ways to chop and slice and dice a defined contribution plan, and the key is getting the right formulas in place that make sense for you, given how much you want to put away, your age, the other owner's ages, the employee ages, et cetera, vesting periods, all this kind of thing. Proper plan design is crucial to get out what you want out of it. Same thing true with defined benefit plans, as you can see in the bottom, planning design. Now, defined benefit plans are not defined, as they sound, by contribution. Okay, they're defined backwards based on age, income, some factors, and then an actuarial calculation to figure out how much you can put away. This may allow people to put away a lot more than a defined contribution plan. We have clients putting in over $200,000 a year into a defined benefit plan. Well, remember, the defined contribution maximum was $53,000. So much bigger contribution levels, but again, employee costs can also be in that ratio of being much higher. So where's defined benefit plans work? Well, when you have a client who needs to catch up, maybe didn't put a lot away younger years and they're a little bit older. Certainly when the ratio of employees to owners is low. If you don't have a lot of employees, then a defined benefit plan can be very beneficial because you're allowed to put away a lot more. You get that deduction going in. Now, defined benefit plans do not, though, have the flexibility of a defined contribution plan. You have to stick to the schedule that you lay out in that actuarial calculation. And so you can have penalties if you underfund. You can have penalties if you terminate before the plan is fully funded. So you really have to have not only the proper plan design, but you've got to have the commitment to following the design that you put in place. And again, we've got defined benefit plans for clients that are working extremely well, but they just have to understand going in what the rules of the game are. Now, IRAs are technically not considered qualified retirement plans. They're a custodial account, and that is very important with the asset protection, as you can see in the fourth bullet. Not our subject today, but just remember, IRAs do not have the same protections in many states as qualified plans. Happy to tell you about that if you contact us, depending on your state. But this, in terms of the financials and the tax treatment, very similar to a defined contribution plan. 2015, it's 25%, I believe, of the AGI as a maximum, might be gross income, or 53,000, whichever is less. You do also have that flexibility on funding that you have with the defined contribution plan. You don't have to put it in every year. There's no rules for underfunding or penalties. So for all qualified plans, though, defined contribution, defined benefit plan, and even for these purposes, your SEP IRA, you get the full deduction for contributions, tax-deferred growth, and income tax on the way out. So if you think about that, what you're trading is you're making a trade of today's tax rates for future tax rates, right? And in fact, you could think of the qualified retirement plan or the SEP IRA as a bet that your tax rate in the future will be lower, or at least the same as it is today. And I'd ask you, do you believe that tax rates in the future will be higher or lower than they are today? Now, one thing you'll hear a lot about in the marketplace is that most people should do qualified plans because simply they're going to be in lower tax rates in retirement. And that is true for many taxpayers. But it's not really true for the kind of clients that we're working with at OJM, successful business owners, entrepreneurs, physicians, etc. In fact, most physicians and business owners are going to maintain their working until they get to a point where they're maybe not exactly at the income they are when they're working, but pretty close. Pretty close. And if you think about how much income takes to get a married couple to the highest tax brackets, I don't have it in front of me, but it's in the $150,000 range, $10,000 or more per month. And a lot of clients are using that as a floor of what they want in retirement. That's putting them in, maybe not the very top bracket, 39.6, but pretty close, in the 30s. Okay, not to mention state taxes and all of that. Taxes on Medicare, taxes on your Medicare payments, et cetera. Excuse me, on your Social Security payments. So let's use my father as an example, Dr. Charles Mandel. Okay, he practiced in Massachusetts and Rhode Island his career. Now lives and practices in his 70s part-time in Florida. So I looked at a tax return from the 1970s, I think it was 1977, and he was putting in the maximum into a profit-sharing plan at a radiology practice in Massachusetts. His tax return showed a marginal highest income tax rate just on the federal side above 70%, not to mention Massachusetts or Rhode Island state taxes. So he was getting a deduction at a 70% marginal rate going in his qualified retirement plan. Now he's over 70, so 70 and a half, so he's taking his minimum required distributions. He's in Florida where there's no state income tax, so he would pay a maximum of 39.6. Even if he's a couple brackets lower than that, he's probably paying in the 30s today on that income versus what he put it in at above 70. A great deal for him, okay? But I ask you, and I ask myself, and I ask my clients, what kind of deal are we going to get? What rates are going to be when we retire? Okay, you can see that he was in the 70s and how much they've come down from then. But this is the chart of the federal tax, and this is in our books, so you don't have to write them down. But the federal income tax only, so this doesn't show state at all or local if you're in New York City, taxes, and it shows only every 10 years on the actual decade, even year. But the data is out there for every year. But you get the picture here. The picture is that from the post-war era to 1980s, for those 5 decades, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, 4 decades, the tax rates in this country, marginal rates, were well above 60%. In fact, for a number of the years, they were above 80%, and that was during Republican administrations and Democratic administrations, okay? Truman, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Nixon, etc. So you can see where we are today. Even after the fiscal cliff, we're at 2013, we are at 39.6. So we've got a while to go before we would even get back to the mean. Now, it's not apples to apples because you could write off a lot of things back then you can't write off today. So the net really wasn't the same as it is today. But I think the point is, would you, knowing this, trade your tax rates today for tomorrow? We don't have the answer to that. And we're still a fan of qualified plans. I have one myself. You just have to realize you want to hedge against it. And I can't tell you how many times I do a lecture, and almost everybody raises their hand when I ask the question, who thinks tax rates in the future on high-income taxpayers are going to be higher than they are today? Most people raise their hand. Then I ask the next question. Do most of you fully fund, or is most of your retirement planning, quote unquote, in a qualified retirement plan? A lot of people will raise their hand. So they're doing with their planning exactly the opposite of what they think is going to happen with tax rates. We're not saying stop the qualified retirement plans. We're saying in tax diversification, hedge against those. Do more. Don't stop what you're doing, but do more. And the main way most clients hedge against their qualified retirement plan is by investing in assets that have capital gains tax treatment, okay? This would be, this slide says physicians, but it's any physician, business owner, any type of OJM client we've got. And what kind of assets are those? Securities, stocks, bonds, funds, hedge funds, REITs, etc. Closely held businesses are entrepreneurs who own their businesses, artwork, commodities, of course, real estate. A lot of our clients invest in real estate. However, you got to realize that if you're going to generate rents for income, that's going to be ordinary income. For some of you, you'll get the capital gains treatment. Some of you may actually get a piece of your sale as ordinary income because of excess depreciation recapture. Okay. Benefit, though, is on your home, your primary home. Is today, under today's tax law, has a capital gains exemption on $500,000 of capital gain for a married couple, $250,000 for a single person. So these assets generally going to spin off capital gains. Again, remember back to our initial slide on the buckets. That's about 30% in taxes. Your home, you might avoid some of that. Okay, so this is good. Certainly 30% is better than a net 45, 50% when you're adding up state and federal taxes, but it's still a significant tax hit. And where are capital gains today versus where they've been? Well, let's look at this slide. Capital gains came into place in the 1940s to pay for World War II. You can see it peaked in the 1970s where it was up to 40%, double what it is today. It's then come down significantly and just came up with the fiscal cliff. So we're at 20% on a federal capital gains tax rate today. But again, those could go up higher in the future, I think. And again, dividends and capital gains treated the same today. Dividends could go up, capital gains could go up. They could both go up in lockstep. They've always been lower than ordinary income, but because when capital gains were at 40, remember ordinary income was at 70. But certainly, I think there's room for these to go up. So that 30% could be higher in the future. So again, if you're going to hedge against your qualified plan with capital gains types assets, which we all do, just beware that there's still going to be a significant tax to be paid when you want to turn those into cash for retirement. Okay? Now, the third bucket, again, is the bucket that's underutilized. This should be part of your retirement planning also. And what are these types of non-taxed assets, non-taxed buckets? Roth IRA, tax-free growth, tax-free access, non-qualified plans and 162 bonus plans. Contributions after tax can come out tax-free depending on the structure. A fringe benefit plan, we're going to talk about one where you get a partial tax deduction going in, tax-free growth, and tax-free access. So you pay some tax on the way in, but then it grows tax-free, and if managed properly, it can come out tax-free. Same thing as cash value life insurance, not term insurance. Term insurance is a cost like your car insurance. It only pays off if you die. But cash value life insurance as an asset class, again, what many of you think of as quote-unquote whole life, although whole life is just one piece of the cash value life insurance pie. That is an asset that, again, since our tax code's been in place, grows tax-free and comes out tax-free. if managed properly. So these are all asset classes you could have in addition to what you've already got, if you're not taking advantage of them, to tax diversify. So let's dig down for 1 minute into the particular fringe benefit plan that would fit under that rubric of tax-free growth. Businesses can put up to $100,000 or more per owner. It depends on how many employees. This is a fringe benefit plan, so it's in addition to your 401k, profit sharing, and pension, and of course in addition to any of your after-tax capital gains type assets like real estate and what have you. You have flexibility here, but the key here is it grows tax-free and comes out tax-free after you're getting partial taxation on the way in. And for that reason, it's a great hedge against future income or capital gains tax increases. It's a great hedge against your qualified retirement plan. So let's look at a real example here. This is a client, 45-year-old gastroenterologist in Ohio, looking to put $100,000 into this plan for 5 years. That's all they did. I only use 100 as a good example. That's why we chose this example. And the numbers are easy to see. We assumed what every client wants to see is what we're showing here. Show me what it's like if you do it versus not doing it. So on one side, on the next slide, we're going to see, let's assume they just took that $100,000 paid tax on like they ordinarily would, 39.6 plus 6% in Ohio. They gave it to a firm like ours to grow the assets, and we grew it at 6.5%. And those assets would spin off some capital gains when they wanted to turn them into cash. And they took distributions from 65 to 85. Okay, so that's not doing it. That's just, let me pay my tax, give it to an investment firm, pay some tax, and then turn it into cash. And we're going to compare that to this benefit plan, where it's the same $100,000 a year for 5 years. You're paying some tax on it initially, but then it grows tax-free and comes out tax-free. And we're growing at the same 6.5%. So it's apples to apples, same growth rate in both buckets. So what you can see here is if that client took $100,000 a year for 5 years, gave it to a firm like ours, and we grew it every year for 20 years, and then they took an income stream out of that for 20 more years, and we charged fees, and they had some taxes, they'd be able to generate over $1.5 million of after-tax retirement wealth from that $500,000 of savings over that time period, which is a pretty nice part of their nest egg. However, if they took that same $100,000, deferred it, put it into this plan, paid some tax on it, let it grow, and pulled it out tax-free, they'd be getting almost $2.5 million, or nearly $900,000 more of after-tax retirement distributions, after tax. So this is like having another, 1.2, 1.3 million in a qualified plan, which is subject to taxes. So this makes a huge difference. And remember, this is apples to apples in terms of same exact rates of return, same exact dollars, same exact rates of return, 6.5% on both sides. So you have to ask yourself, with the same rates of return, is it worth the leverage of an extra $880,000 of after-tax retirement income to look into something like this? Maybe it is. Okay. So the conclusion here, realize that qualified retirement plans are one part of an overall retirement plan for any client. And there's a tax bet associated with qualified retirement plans, okay, that you're trading today's tax rates for the future, and just realize that. Now, if you're going to use a qualified retirement plan, which most of you are, which I do, make sure it's maximized. Make sure you're using the right formula, the right type of plan for your situation so you can get the most bang out of your buck. Then also understand that your personally held assets, like securities and real estate, are subject to capital gains taxes. They're another bucket that's valuable and probably going to be taxed at a better rate in the future than qualified retirement plans, but they're still going to be taxed significantly, 20 to 35% probably. Consider other benefit plans and buckets which are hedged against both ordinary income and the capital gains, and as they are today, and if they go up, which many of you in the audience probably think they are going to go up, one or two or all three, dividends, capital gains, and ordinary income. So the key is tax diversification. Make sure your retirement planning is tax diversified. About us, for those of you who don't know, we're a pretty unique firm, I think, because we've got a consulting division, as well as an insurance and benefits division, as well as a wealth management investment division. We have over 1,000 clients in 48 states. We have a multidisciplinary team. My background is as a lawyer. My partner Jason's background is insurance and investments, insurance and benefit plans. My Partner Carol is a CPA with 25 years of tax experience. We've got a whole investment team that has experience on investments. We have CFPs who are financial modelers, and all types of expertise in between. We can look at both a business or a practice, and we consult with businesses and practices across the country. We can work with clients individually. And if taxes are important, we have something that's called our firm commitment. And if we're working with a business or practice and tax planning is part of our scope of our engagement and you qualify, we can offer our firm commitment, which says that if we can't save you at least, or show you ways to save at least 200% of the fee we're going to charge on the consulting side, we'll refund the fee. So we're really standing behind what our consulting is about, and the reason we're able to do that is because most clients are not maximized. I just showed you a couple of ideas today, but there are tons of others out there that we bring to the table. So in terms of next steps, make sure you get copies of our book if you're a physician, for doctors only. If you're one of the docs in the states, California, Ohio, New York, or Georgia, get one of our state books. If you're an orthopedic surgeon or dermatologist, get our book specifically for those specialists. If you're a business owner, get our book, Fortune Building for Business Owners and Entrepreneurs. Sign up for our e-newsletter, consult. We do a free consult always. And contact me, Mandel at OJM Group. It's my phone number, my email. Feel free to ask a question, to set up a free consult. If you want any of our books, hard copy or iBook or Kindle or iPad, go to our OJM bookstore and use the code WEB0315. So WEB0315. When you check out, you get it for free. I appreciate you taking the time. I hope I hear from most of you. I hope you all get copies of our books and sign up for our e-newsletter, and look out for our next webinar, which we do the next month. And hopefully this was helpful, and all of you take the time to put the effort into your retirement planning, and that goes beyond your qualified retirement plan into a fully tax-diversified retirement plan. Thank you.